Alexa, stop. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's Miss Kayla. So this afternoon is an impromptu chit chat, and I just had to come on here and share a little bit of my mind and my heart after having tuned into Camille A. Brown's social dance series for social distancing. And again, just more and more blessings that we receive through social media, being able to interact and connect with one another in this very intimate and communal way. So, such a gift. And she is our choice teacher who we are appreciating this month because she teaches us as a community so much. She gives back to her community and as well as informs and educates other communities about the power of the Black aesthetic, the Black culture, Black history, Black dance, social dances, and how they all interweave and come together and mesh and just create this beautiful mural and conglomerate of art. So today, Monsell Durden, a sensei, master teacher, he's done film, he has a book, so he's an author, choreographer, director, and dancer, came on and shared about Negro spirituals going into along the historical timeline of blues and dance. And so many golden nuggets were just dropping all over the place, and it just started to spark my mind's interest, my mind's interest in sharing with the creative and equal opportunity community the importance of work culture and adaptation. So we've heard it many times before. We are because they were. Acknowledging our ancestors, acknowledging history. History is not a myth. History is, in fact, factual, real events with real people and their real lives that took place that now affects who we are, what we do, how we interact with one another, and the world that we are continuing to build and to shape. So let us first acknowledge that. The second thing is that it's absolutely true. It is important that we do not forget where we came from and who we are. And we tend to shy away from this because we feel like, oh, maybe we're drawing back, we're getting lost in the past. But we have to understand that this is all cyclical and everything applies from the beginning to the end and it starts back up again. That's just how it's designed. That's just how it is. And the more informed we can be about our own history and about our own people and who we are, whether that's a person of color, indigenous, Asian, Latino, whatever, whomever. You may even be a white person who identifies with these cultures or who is interested or who is an advocate or can appreciate other cultures or histories. It's the same thing. It's very crucial that we understand the depth of the work and the depth of this foundational knowledge. We call it the fundamentals, the absolutes, and the principles because it applies into everything that we are and everything that we do. So now we have this fusion of dances and aesthetic and possibilities with all art forms, not just dance. And we have to see it for what it is. And in fact, it is a fusion of different aesthetics, different styles, techniques, things that all have their own story, their own place, and their own take. We call it perspective. And then it comes together and it starts to just play around and mesh and bleed over one into the other and become this beautiful thing that we can now present and share amongst each other. And it has been a form of survival to disassociate ourselves as people of color with our own heritage and our own culture. Why? Because it was dangerous, which is why you had Black people passing for white, right? It was not acceptable. It was not beautiful or pretty. It was deemed unintelligible, ugly, um, irrelevant, all these things that just canceled out the depth and the truth of who and what people of color are. And that's still going on today. So, as you can see, what has taken place in history still lives on. So, now we have in our governance, in our leadership, individuals who do not respect other cultures, other histories, other aesthetics, and do not allow them to give voice to their truth. So, survival, a survival tactic for those people, have been to negate it, to disregard, to disassociate, and to just turn a blind eye completely and say, you know what, that's not who I am anymore. We've progressed, we've advanced, I'm better, technology's in the mix, science says this, we can just move on. This happens over and over again. But why is this so dangerous, so destructive, so harmful to sustainability? Because that's what it's about when we're talking about equity. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. It's harmful because you have no grounding, you have no root. And when you've disassociated yourself, what do you have to protect who you are when it comes to talking about the things that are so important to you? So I'll give an example. Bill T. Jones of the Bill T. Jones and Arnie Zane Company wrestled with the same existence and the same reality. He felt like there was a time where he just could not associate himself with black dance and black dance aesthetics and what modern dance was defining itself to be, and what jazz and all these kinds of things. He needed to go out and create something of his own. He needed to find his own voice. And at the time, it was a survival tactic, and he was doing it really more so just to be able to break free and not to be so confined to one definition of who he was or who he had the potential to be, but to be able to find and come into his own. And we all have a sense of entitlement to that. Why? Because, say for instance, in joining a production, a project, an ensemble of other artists, you don't want to just be defined within one stigma or one story, one stereotype or one archetype of who you are based on how you look or how you sound or any of those kinds of things, right? You want to be able to be yourself completely. And even as an artist, because we're constantly evolving, you want the freedom to be able to continue to explore that and not be confined or limited by labels and etc. There was a time when that was a very real part of not only survival, but adaptation to professional life, where which archetypes were the only positions that were available to artists, because you had to fit a certain quota, you had a budget, or maybe your presenters or that particular board of the company or organization says, look, this is what we need, this is what we want to put out, this is what is selling, all those kinds of things. Now we are in a far better existence where we have been able to say, wait a minute, that's not quite right. There is more to us, there's more to them, there's more to this thing that we call art. And we can't just allow art for art's sake and what's going to appease the audience, but we have to begin to integrate the truth and the real life stories of these people and their existence and validate that, so that when we are sharing this work, we are also educating and informing our audiences about these variances of truth that exist. We're not just pulling things from out of the sky and choreographers just waking up one day saying, this inspired me, the color blue and the number 3, and let's create. Now, these things do happen, but also acknowledging humanity. humanity in the process, humanity in the studio, humanity in the world of professionalism. And so when we put it all together, right? Remembering and acknowledging, or acknowledging and remembering, rather, who we are, where we come from, realizing just how important it is to have the foundation or the fundamentals as part of that identity. Being inclusive with the truths and the storytelling, etc. And then weaving it all together to continue to promote these different stories, perspectives, angles, truths, however it is you'd like to put it. All of this needs to be a part of this melting pot that we here in the Americas call ourselves. Now, a melting pot is a fusion of differences. So in order to create a sustainable and harmonic work environment, whatever that is, if it's 2 weeks, if it's 1 month, if it's a seasonal contract, or if it's a couple of years, it's going to take a lot of compassion, empathy, listening, understanding, and valuing one another. And valuing one another, just period. You know, those differences bring a lot of beauty, bring a lot into the fold. And when you think about a production, and as we're moving forward into this progressive, sustainable, advanced environment, existence and world that we live in, we're not only talking about diversity in terms of skin color, and in terms of culture and different backgrounds, we're also talking about diversity in terms of mindset and where this all came from. So, Moncel, I came onto the social dance for social distancing lecture talk series towards the tail end of his discussion, and I was just drawn in completely. At that point, he was closing out the talk about blues and going into the ring shout, work songs. We only scratch the surface of it when we talk about call and response and syncopation and polyrhythms and all these kinds of things. There's so much to it. So I invite you, if you catch this talk on today, go check out Camille A. Brown's live series to hear his talk, and or visit his page yourself, or in his website, and look into his books and his films, and really dive deep. We are also going to be including this talk along with a couple of links from the Library of Congress, where which if you are a student, emerging artist, or just simply someone who wants to inform yourself, can go to the website Library of Congress and dive into the archival videos that they have. So let's come back. Adaptation to work culture, appreciating differences. So he was talking about the one count that artists like James Brown tap into, and just really highly intuitive and sophisticated artists and musicians who have that ear. So work songs were primarily for people of color. In the Americas, that's Black people. All over the world, there are work songs. And the purpose of a work song is to keep the flow, keep the rhythm, keep everybody on that steady pace so that you can end the work day out on time. But also so that you can elevate the spirit and the soul of the humans and the individuals who are working. If you think about working on the railroad, it's dangerous. You're exposed to all sorts of harmful things. If you think about the Panama Canal, millions of people, thousands of people died just carving out that canal to make a way of transit for us to be able to go freely and vacation and all these things that we have these privileges too. And so when we come into a space where people are doing things different from one another, it's a fine time to pay attention, listen, dare even ask questions, to learn about the what, the how, and the why of its existence before criticizing, laughing at, all those kinds of things. We're here to work together and to serve one another. So equity, and our mantra, our slogan, our tagline is fairness and excellence for all, because when it comes to equity, it's not just about equal pay and getting paid on time and, being communicative between employer employee. It's also about opening that communal space to each other to share in and appreciate, highlight what makes that space so unique and special. And it's because of the differences that are there. And when we really take the time to inquire with a curious mind and an open heart, then conversation and appreciation will come in. Because if you love what you do, if you love your art form, you're going to give it your all. You're going to give it your best. And everyone is entitled to being able to work in a space that is excellent, but also work in a space that values that excellence and values that hard work. And back in the day, people of color didn't have that. They didn't have people saying, "Good job, chap," on the back, or "Good job, honey, sweetie," or whoever. It was, get back to work, keep working, do more. There were even death threats and beatings and all these kinds of things. So all you had was the art form as your appreciation, as your empathy, as your compassion, as your love, and as that conduit of communication between one to another. So between you and your peers, your colleagues, whomever you're working with, you want to create that harmonious, equitable space where which everyone can benefit from that excellence, from that love, from the art. Knowing that ultimately there is an end goal, there is a purpose, there is a plan, and there is a point of why you all came together in that space. At this time and at this age, it's not by force. It's because, and go check out our previous chit chat about contracting, it's because you want to be there. You've mutually agreed and signed over to be there, whether for that week, that month, that season, that year, whatever. You want to be there. You want to give, and you want to experience exchange. So creating harmonious, equitable environment is a necessity. It is an absolute, and everyone is entitled to it. So we say fairness all across the board and excellence for all. Equity. Absolutely. We've come such a long way, and I'm boldly wearing my IABD, then now next, Philly 2020, woo woo, shirt to represent that I am Black Dance. I am proud to be Black. I am proud to be a dancer. I am proud to be a dance teacher, to be a dance lecturer and a dance scholar. I am proud to contribute to the space. Every time you enter into a space, you have a responsibility. You just do. Not because of anything else, simply but because you're amazing. You're amazing. There's so much that you have to offer. And exchange can only happen in an equitable environment where everyone feels safe, where everyone feels valued, where everyone feels secure, like their voices matter. Whether it's a dance move or whether it's an opinion that you share, whether it's a different note that you explore, or whether it's a different take on that monologue or that dialogue, whether it's a different angle as a cinematographer that you say, hey, wait a minute, I have something. You know, creating an environment where everyone is intrigued by the work and intrigued by one another is a space that promises infinite possibilities to erupt. If you look at genius Spike Lee, you will see overlapping moral stories and different perspectives going on within his film because of the people that he valued as part of the process. They say, that's interesting. Let's try this. Let's do that. And he said, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what you want to, that's the kind of space that you want to have, that you want to exist, that you want to be in. So when it comes to being a professional, let's segue into professionalism. When it comes to being a professional, this is something that you have to do on an individual basis. You have to check in with yourself before you step into that place where others are, going to benefit from your brilliance and your creativity. You have to check in with yourself at the door and say, am I ripe for the picking? Or are you sour? Are you still kind of prematurely meditating on what happened before? Maybe you need some time to woosah. Maybe you need a breather. Maybe you need to confide in a friend and have a conversation. Because energy transference is real. Energy transference is when you have a set of energy going on within you, and whether it's positive or negative, you can impress upon that energy onto the next person or into the space. And as we've advanced in the arts, we now have these collaborative environments where, even if not invoked by the choreographer, the director, or the curator, or the host, or whomever, they said, can you go over for maybe a couple of seconds and create something and come back? They're constantly feeding on that energy, that spark, that creativity in the room, because that's what the room is for. It's to inspire one another. So create equity for yourself even before expecting it in the room of others. Create equity and say, you know what? I deserve to be able to explore my best, experience my best, exchange my best, and give my best. You have it to give. But check with yourself, because if you don't, then you just might spill over that energy, that unwarranted, negative or harsh or cruel, whatever kind of energy it is, onto someone else. Okay? And to the younger generation, I want to say this, it's very important that not only do you honor the shoulder, the giants of whom shoulders you stand on as you go up and you go up and you go up and you go up, but also avoid the take where you just pop in and pop out and you just take. Commit. You have something to offer. You have something to give. So I want to thank Monsell Durden for inspiring this chit chat today of adaptation in work culture. I hope as an emerging pre-professional student or professional or individual in career transition, that this has benefited you, this talk here. And we are partnering with our cousins, AAC, Arts Administrators of Color, to celebrate this month with our Asian and South Pacific indigenous peoples in the arts, however, in whatever way that that is. We will continue to acknowledge and highlight and celebrate them in this month. This is also Mental Health Awareness Month, so I'm sure plenty of opportunities to tune in, tap in, etc. Are going to be made available to you. So check that out. Teaching Artists of the Mid-Atlantic, they are also our community partners, and they have so much to offer. So dive into that as well. And IABD invites you to check them out as well on the couch. If you're on your couch or your bed or your chair or wherever, dive into that. So thanks for joining us for the chit chat, and we will see you next time.